Bernie, I don't use hair dye.
It's mine, baby.
But you've been getting gray hair since you were 20.
The world was told that comedy legend Bernie Mac died from pneumonia, a simple and tragic end. But the truth is far more complicated and much darker. For years, the real story of his final days was hidden behind official statements and unanswered questions. Now the pieces have been put together, revealing a timeline of events so troubling it changes everything you thought you knew. This is the story of a secret illness, a fateful doctor's visit, and a final, desperate fight for life. The final fight. In the cold, sterile room of Chicago's Northwestern Memorial Hospital, the night of August 8, 2008, was filled with the quiet hum of machines keeping a comedy king alive. Bernie Mac, the man whose booming voice and fearless stage presence made millions laugh, was silent. He was fighting for every single breath, and he was losing. His wife, Rhonda McCullough, the woman he had loved since they were teenagers, stood by his side, her heart breaking with every beep of the monitor. She leaned in close, her words a desperate plea against the inevitable. Please don't die," she begged him. "I'm here. I'm waiting for you. I'll take care of you. Just don't die." Doctors rushed in, working frantically on him as his body began to shut down. They tried to resuscitate him once, and for a miraculous hour, he came back. But his system was too weak. He went into cardiac arrest a second time, and the medical team could not bring him back again. In a quiet moment before the end, Bernie opened his eyes and looked directly at Rhonda. She called his name, and he nodded. She told him, "Don't leave me. I'm waiting for you to come back." In response, he simply shrugged his shoulders. In that small, heartbreaking gesture, Rhonda knew he was tired. He was signaling to her that his body was done fighting. At 2 a.m. on August 9th, at just 50 years old, Bernard Jeffrey McCullough was gone. The world mourned a comedian, but his family mourned the man who fought so hard in that room. The official cause of death was complications from pneumonia. But that was only the final chapter of a much longer and more disturbing story. To understand how this titan of comedy ended up so helpless, we have to go back just a few weeks to a doctor's office where a 9-hour visit may have sealed his fate. The 9 hours that changed everything. 2 years after Bernie's death, his grieving widow, Rhonda, did something that shocked the public. She filed a wrongful death lawsuit. The lawsuit was not against the hospital where he died, but against a man who had been in Bernie's life for over 20 years, his dermatologist, Dr. Renee Earls. The details of the lawsuit painted a chilling picture of Bernie Mac's last weeks as a free man. The story begins in July 2008, just before he was hospitalized. Bernie went to Dr. Earls's clinic for treatment of skin lesions caused by his long-term illness. When he walked in, he was clearly not well. He was weak, had a fever, and a rash had broken out on his body. Bernie told the doctor that he had received an injection for a cold earlier that day from another physician. According to Rhonda's lawsuit, this is where everything went wrong. She claimed that Dr. Earls failed to recognize the obvious signs of respiratory distress, that Bernie was struggling to breathe. Instead of calling an ambulance and sending him straight to the emergency room, the lawsuit alleged that Dr. Earls kept Bernie at his clinic for 9 hours. 9 hours. As Bernie's condition worsened, precious time was slipping away. Rhonda alleged that this long delay set off a chain reaction of complications that ultimately led to his death. Dr. Earls had a different story. He stated that after Bernie told him about the injection, he called the other doctor to find out what was going on. It was only then, he claimed, that he learned the terrible truth. Bernie Mac had just been diagnosed with pneumonia in both of his lungs. Once he had this information, Dr. Earls said he advised his patient to go to the hospital. But the question at the heart of the lawsuit remained. Why did it take 9 hours? For 9 hours, a man in respiratory distress was in a dermatologist's office instead of an ICU. Was this a tragic misunderstanding, or was it a case of medical negligence that cost Bernie Mac his life? This single day became the central mystery of his death. But to understand why Bernie was so vulnerable in the first place, you have to know about the secret war he had been fighting for half his life. The secret war he fought for 25 years. On stage, Bernie Mac was a force of nature, fearless, powerful, and in total control. But behind the scenes, he was fighting a silent battle against a disease that was slowly chipping away at his body's defenses. In 1983, just as his comedy career was beginning to take shape, doctors diagnosed him with sarcoidosis. He would live with this disease for the next 25 years, exactly half of his life. Sarcoidosis is a mysterious inflammatory disease. For reasons that doctors still don't fully understand, the immune system goes into overdrive and causes tiny clumps of cells, called granulomas, to form in the body's organs. In 90% of cases, these granulomas form in the lungs, causing shortness of breath, a persistent cough, and scarring. Most importantly, it compromises the body's immune system, leaving it open to attack. The disease is also known to be cruelly specific. Studies have shown that sarcoidosis is not only more common in Black Americans, but is often far more aggressive and severe than in white patients. The age-adjusted mortality rate for African Americans with the disease is 12 times higher than for Caucasians. For Bernie, this meant he was fighting a tougher battle than most. For years, he fought this war in private. He built a massive career, starred in movies, and became a household name, all while dealing with the effects of his chronic illness. He told the world in 2005 that the disease was in remission, but the damage had been done. His immune system was permanently weakened. The public had no idea how fragile his health truly was until a scary incident in 2004, 4 years before his death. In October 2004, production on his hit sitcom, The Bernie Mac Show, was suddenly shut down. The network, Fox, released a statement saying the shutdown was to allow Bernie to recover from exhaustion after a grueling summer of filming movies. The story was that he had simply overworked himself. But that was a lie to protect his image and his career. The truth was far more serious. Bernie Mac had been hospitalized with double pneumonia. His lungs were weak, his immune system was failing, and his sarcoidosis symptoms had become pronounced. Around this time, his face on the show appeared bloated, and he had gained a lot of weight, a side effect of the powerful medications he was taking to fight the inflammation in his body. This 2004 health crisis was a dress rehearsal for the tragedy that would come in 2008. It was the exact same scenario: a weakened immune system, a battle with pneumonia, and a public story designed to hide the severity of his condition. It showed just how hard Bernie was pushing himself, refusing to let the disease slow him down. But where did this relentless, almost dangerous work ethic come from? The answer lies in a promise he made as a little boy, born out of heartbreak on the tough streets of Chicago's South Side. A promise forged in pain. Bernard Jeffrey McCullough grew up in the Englewood community of Chicago, a neighborhood known more for gangs than for glamour. He was raised by his single mother, Mary, and his grandparents. His childhood was marked by poverty and profound loss. The defining moment of his life happened when he was just 4 years old. His mother was sick with cancer, and the pain often made her cry. One day, little Bernard saw his mother crying, but then he watched as her tears turned to laughter while she watched the comedian Bill Cosby on television. In that moment, a mission was born. He told her, "Mama, I'm going to be a comedian, so maybe you never have to cry again." That promise became his life's purpose, a purpose that was hardened by a relentless series of tragedies. When Bernie was just 16 years old and a sophomore in high school, his mother lost her battle with cancer. Shortly after, his older brother died. Then his estranged father passed away as well. In just a few short years, the core of his family was gone. Laughter was not just a job for him, it was a survival tool. It was the one thing that could fight back against the pain. He even performed his first stand-up routine at the age of 8, impersonating his grandparents at a church dinner. This drive to make people laugh became the engine that powered him through the toughest times. But before he could make the world laugh, he had to figure out how to make a living. The long road to laughter. After graduating from Chicago Vocational High School in 1975, Bernie married his high school sweetheart, Rhonda Gore, 2 years later. They were both just 19 years old. A year later, their daughter, Janice, was born. With a young family to support, the dream of being a comedian seemed a long way off. For years, Bernie worked a long list of back-breaking jobs to make ends meet. He was a janitor, a professional mover, a cook, a bus driver, a UPS agent, and a Wonder Bread delivery man. All the while, he spent his nights and weekends on the comedy circuit, honing his craft. He performed at clubs and parties, sometimes for no pay at all. He even told jokes on the Chicago subway platforms for spare change. His first professional gig was at Chicago's famous Cotton Club in 1977. He was so broke he had to borrow a suit from his brother. For over a decade, he labored in relative obscurity, a fixture on the Chicago scene but unknown to the rest of the world. He was grinding, working day and night, building a reputation one joke at a time. But he was still waiting for that one big break, the one moment that would change everything. That moment was coming, and it would arrive on the most intimidating stage in comedy. In 1990, at the age of 32, Bernie's life changed. He won the Miller Lite Comedy Search, a national competition that finally put him on the map. The win secured him a spot on a new HBO show that was changing the face of comedy, Def Comedy Jam. The show was notorious for its tough crowds. If they didn't like a comedian, they would boo them right off the stage. The night Bernie was set to perform, the comedian before him bombed so badly that the crowd was hostile and angry. Most performers would have been terrified. But Bernie Mac walked out on that stage, looked at the furious audience, and delivered the line that would define his career. "I ain't scared of you." He took their anger and turned it into thunderous applause. His fearlessness was his superpower. That performance made him a star. He started getting small roles in movies like Mo Money and House Party 3. He played the hilarious Pastor Clever in the cult classic Friday and had a recurring role on the sitcom Moesha. He was no longer just a Chicago comic. He was on his way to becoming a king. King of comedy. In the late 1990s, Bernie joined 3 other comedy giants, Steve Harvey, D.L. Hewley, and Cedric the Entertainer, for the original Kings of Comedy tour. It became the highest-grossing comedy tour in history. Director Spike Lee turned their Charlotte, North Carolina show into a hit concert film in 2000. While all 4 men were brilliant, many felt Bernie stole the show. He was the final act every night because nobody wanted to follow him. His raw, unfiltered style, where he talked about raising his sister's kids, was both shocking and hilarious. That very routine became the basis for his own sitcom. In 2001, The Bernie Mac Show premiered on Fox. The show, created by Larry Wilmore, was a massive success. It was praised for its unique style, especially the moments where Bernie would break the fourth wall and talk directly to the audience, who he called America. The show won a Peabody Award and an Emmy for its writing. Suddenly, Bernie Mac was everywhere. He was starring in huge movies like Ocean's 11 and its sequels, Bad Santa, Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, and Head of State. He was a certified movie star and a TV icon at the same time. But the massive success came with a punishing schedule. The grind that never stopped. Bernie's work ethic was legendary, a trait he said he got from his mother. He never took anything for granted and hated to let people down. In one interview he said, "The world don't owe you nothing, man. It's what you owe the world." This attitude meant he never stopped working. In 2004, He had one of the most hectic schedules of his life. He was shooting his TV show, filming a commercial, and flying back and forth to film 2 major movies, Ocean's 12 and Guess Who. He was working 16 to 18-hour days and hadn't had a real break in 8 years. His wife Rhonda saw the toll it was taking. She later said she would see him struggling with oxygen tanks between takes on movie sets. He was pushing his body to its absolute limit, all while fighting a secret war inside his own lungs. The combination of a relentless work schedule and a compromised immune system was a ticking time bomb. In the fall of 2004, that bomb went off. The final, fatal collapse. The chain of events that led to Bernie Mac's death began quietly. On July 24, 2008, he was admitted to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. He had a fever and was having trouble breathing. The public was not told about his hospitalization for another week, and even then, the date of his admittance was reported as August 1st, 8 days later than it actually happened. From the very beginning, the truth of his condition was managed and hidden. Upon arrival, he was immediately diagnosed with pneumonia and placed on a ventilator to help him breathe. He was in a perfect storm of medical problems. His immune system was already compromised from 25 years of fighting sarcoidosis. To make matters worse, his sister-in-law later revealed that he was on a new medication that suppressed his immune system even further. She said, "That's where the pneumonia came from." His body's own defenses had been turned off, leaving him completely vulnerable. He was critically ill and in the intensive care unit the entire time. Doctors kept him sedated, but even in the protected environment of the ICU, his body was too weak to fight. While he was there, he contracted a second different strain of pneumonia. It was a devastating blow from which he would not recover. Yet, to the outside world, a very different story was being told. On August 7th, just 2 days before he died, his spokesperson released an official statement. It read, "Bernie Mac is in stable condition in a Chicago area hospital. He is responding well to treatment and hopes to be released in the next few weeks." Stable condition, responding well, hopes to be released. It was a message of hope and recovery. But inside that hospital, his family knew the horrifying truth. He was not stable. He was not responding well. He was dying. The public statement was a final attempt to project the image of strength that Bernie had built his entire life on. But behind the hospital doors, the fight was already over. The next day, his body began to fail, leading to that final heartbreaking night when he told his wife with a shrug that he was just too tired to go on. An unsolved mystery and an unsettling truth. After Bernie Mac was laid to rest, after nearly 7,000 mourners, including Chris Rock, Samuel L. Jackson, and his fellow kings of comedy, gathered to say goodbye, one question lingered. Could his death have been prevented? Rhonda McCullough's wrongful death lawsuit was the only chance to get a legal answer. It was the one path to finding out if that 9-hour delay at the dermatologist's office was the critical mistake that cost him his life. The case moved slowly through the legal system for 5 years. Then, in January 2015, the lawsuit was suddenly dropped. Rhonda's attorney, Canon Lambert Sr., gave a vague explanation. He said the case was being withdrawn so they could shore up some internal issues, and that it could be refiled within a year. But it never was. The 1-year deadline came and went, and the case was gone for good. Dr. Earls's attorney, Mike Prangle, had a much simpler explanation. He told the press that the lawsuit was dismissed because Rhonda McCullough had no legitimate case against Dr. Earls. Because the case was dropped and never went to trial, a jury never got to hear the evidence. The central question of whether Dr. Earls was negligent was never answered. The mystery of those 9 hours remains legally unsolved. And that is the final unsettling truth of this story. The mystery of Bernie Mac's death is solved not by finding a secret culprit, but by revealing all the pieces that led to the tragedy. A hidden disease that weakened him, a relentless drive that pushed him past his limits, and a questionable medical decision at a critical moment. The reason the story isn't good is because there is no justice. There is no closure. There is only the painful, lingering question of what might have been if things had been done differently on that fateful July day. The death of Bernie Mac was not a simple medical tragedy. It was a perfect storm created by a silent disease, an unstoppable work ethic forged in childhood pain, and a series of events in his final weeks that left his family with a lifetime of unanswered questions. The man who made the world laugh by telling them he ain't scared was fighting a terrifying internal battle that he kept hidden from the world. Today, his legacy continues not just through his classic comedy, but through the Bernie Mac Foundation, run by his wife Rhonda, which raises awareness for sarcoidosis, the very disease that quietly set the stage for his tragic end.